You know, I've done a lot of things at CNN. I started when I was 22 years old, and I've been there for more than 20 years now. Okay, don't do the math. I was trying to calculate how old I am. And I've done a lot of different things. I've done writing. I'm a copy editor. I've anchored. I've done reports. And I think the most memorable interview I've ever done was with Jimmy Carter when I was a young writer. And I was really scared. It was my first or second year at CNN. And it was a really big interview. I mean, I remember telling my husband, oh my gosh, is he gonna want to talk to me? Does he know I'm Iranian? Because, you know, that whole Iran thing didn't go too well. And Larry said, oh, don't worry about it, it's gonna go great. And the setup was just like this. President Carter sat at that chair, I sat here, and I wish I had the picture to show you. Young, and I asked him a bunch of questions. He was gracious, he was kind. And that's one interview I will never forget. And back in those days, there was no website, there was no internet. So the only thing that makes me sad, I have no record of it. It was done and we put it on the air, but that was like 1991, 1992. It went on the air and that was that. It was on a tape and who knows what happened to the tape. But I still have a picture of him and I having a conversation, and he was just lovely, lovely, lovely. My biggest inspiration, number one, would be my husband. And I'm not trying to score any points. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. My husband is an incredible journalist. He's got integrity, he's got heart, he knows the business, and I have learned so much from him. He and I met years ago when I was in college, and he was already a producer at CNN. And I remember there was a lot of times once we were married that I was down on myself. And he would say to me, don't get down on yourself. You know, you just pick up the pieces, you get up, and you keep going. He's also an amazing husband. He's an amazing dad. So he's an inspiration to me all around. My challenges as an Iranian American, well, I think the biggest challenge is making sure Americans know about Iran and they have the right information. I'm usually very irritated when I tell people I'm Iranian and they say, oh, we have a friend who's from Bahrain. Oh, we have a friend who lived in Iraq. Obviously, there's no connection. So I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. But the bright side of that is it's always nice to inform people. We have a responsibility as journalists to make sure people have the right information. So the challenge number one is, gosh, they don't have enough information, but the positive side of that is that I have the power and the knowledge to tell them what is right about Iran and all the wonderful things we have, the tradition, the culture, the food, the people, and it's not always the political leaders we see on television. I don't think being Iranian American has either helped or hurt me. I think it's about your work ethic and the person that you are. I have never encountered a situation where they would say, oh, you're Iranian, therefore you're not going to get a promotion. Or you're not Iranian, sorry, you're not a minority, or you're a minority, it's going to help or hurt you in any way. I think it's the person you are, the hard work that you do, and at the end of the day, are you proud of your accomplishments? Have you contributed anything? Doesn't matter where you're from. What would I tell young people that want to go into journalism? Do we have 3 hours? Just kidding. I would tell them, number one, you have to have the passion. Ask yourself, are you willing to work really hard hours? Are you willing to work for little money? Are you willing to put up with bossy people who might tell you something you don't like, but at the end of the day, they're trying to teach you something? If you answer yes to all those questions, if it's yes, despite all those issues, then I would say you can start. That's the starting point. But once you're there, there's a lot of challenges and obstacles. And you have to persevere, you have to work hard, you have to answer the right questions, and there are absolutely no shortcuts in journalism. You know, when I was growing up, my dad would say, I don't care what you want to do. If you want to be the garbage collector, be the best garbage collector you want to be. You want to be a housekeeper, be the best housekeeper you can be. And I would tell young people, you want to be a journalist? Have the passion, have the drive, and be the best journalist you can be. My childhood had a tremendous impact on what I wanted to do in life. Being Iranian, coming to this country at a young age, and the hostage crisis was going on. I barely knew 2 words of English, and I was confronted with a lot of prejudice and bias and a lot of idiotic questions. And I was also the kid at lunchtime who nobody wanted to talk to. I was, it's funny, I get emotional telling the story. I wanted to be a journalist because I wanted to know. I wanted people to know Iranians are amazing. And they're not what they see on TV. And my childhood had a huge part of that. Because when you are alone and when you struggle, boy, you become so driven to succeed in life, to do the best, and to erase the stereotypes. And I think that was huge for me. I tell my kids these days, if you ever see a little kid sitting at the lunch table and no one is talking to them, you make sure you be the one to reach out to them and sit with them. Being a little Iranian, scrawny little kid in 1979 was not an easy thing. But I think at the end, it made me a better person. It gave me compassion. It's turned me into a very empathetic person. I'm a better mom. And yes, I still do get emotional talking about it. I think my most important job is being a mom. Being a mom, being a wife, and being an amazing journalist. Those are my priorities. Raising 2 girls has been challenging and the biggest reward of my life, no question. Balancing is tough because when you want to be successful, when you want to do well, there are days that you're going to skip or miss the softball games. There are days that they're sick and you have an important meeting or you have an important assignment and you turn to your husband and you say, okay, who's going to do what? Are you going to stay home? Are you going to take him to the doctor? It is definitely a balancing act. You cannot go to every softball game. You cannot go to every doctor's appointment. You pick and choose. And I think I've been really lucky because my girls understand it and they have, if it's a really important thing to them, I try to be there. And I'm also lucky to work in a place where if I go to my supervisor or my boss and say, you know what, this is really important, please, can I have the day off? I'm lucky enough to work in a place that they're going to give me the day off. So I think it's not just being a journalist. I think any working mom, regardless of where you're from, when you have children, it's a delicate balancing act. And you have to realize it's not going to be perfect. You can't always make everybody happy. You do the best you can. You love your children, give them support. You do the best you can do. One of the trips I remember I took, in fact, had nothing to do with CNN. When the earthquake in Bam, Iran happened near Kerman, I was really impacted. The pictures on TV, the little kids who had lost so much, and just this ancient city in Iran that I'd never been to Kerman or Shiraz or Isfahan when I was growing up. And as I was thinking to myself, I wish there was a way I could go and help. A team of American doctors, just in a total fluke, I meet these doctors through a friend of mine, and they're getting ready to go to Iran, and they need someone who speaks Farsi. So they come to me and they say, do you want to go? And of course I didn't have my passport. I didn't have any documentation. We got the ball rolling. I got all my paperwork. And I remember my youngest daughter was probably 2 years old, and my husband was in a job transition. So it actually worked out. Went with these doctors, went to Iran, and it was the first time I was setting foot on Iranian soil since I left as a 12-year-old child. And I remember the smell of the air, the crowd at Mehrawad airport, and thinking, okay, this is just like how it was. I left and I'm back and it's the same. But as you walk through the streets and you see the people, of course, are the same. They're the same wonderful people. But there are images, on the billboards, graffiti on the walls, of course, what you watch on television. It's not the same country I knew. And then, of course, we went to Kerman, we drove to Bam, and it was an unbelievable experience. We visited hospitals where children were left under the rubble for 12 hours and rescued. And these doctors were amazing. We donated hospital goods, cribs, beds, clothing to the orphanages and the hospitals. And these were American doctors. These are not Iranian doctors. They don't have any nationalistic attachments to Iran. They went out of the goodness of their heart. And then the reaction of the Iranians. شما آمریکایی هستین؟ دکتر آمریکایی هستین؟ مرسی که اومدین کشور ما. Just this outpour of love and emotion for the American doctors, and this is what people in this country don't know. Oh, it's unsafe for us to go to Iran. Actually, at that point, from my recollection, it was a safe place to go, and they were so appreciative of the help that these American doctors gave them. And for me to have a tiny little contribution, to make that contribution, because I didn't buy, I had little things that I took with me, but my time, the effort, and the human contact with these children, I'm telling you, it is so hard not to leave that country and take one of those babies out of the crib and say, come live with me. Because you see, they're in cribs, the way they feed them. I'm telling you, these children were in the cribs, and the ladies with food would go. They don't take them out of the crib to put them in a high chair. In a bowl and a spoon with the bars, the crib bars, the spoon goes between the crib bars. And this is how these children are fed. They're babies, but you are so tempted to just take one with you and give one to friends. You raise this one, you raise that one. And they have very strict laws. These children can't leave because they want them to go to Muslim families. So that was one trip I don't think I'll ever forget.